Aries rules selfhood, independence, but also the ego. Neptune dissolves the boundaries of that. Like, where do I end? Where does the other begin? That may not be as clear anymore. The question, what does it mean to be an individual, might be a question that is going to be asked in the collective. Where do personal desires end and collective needs begin? Or vice versa. I can also see a identity crisis here that runs deep in the collective, and it comes from the individual identity crisis, where we are not sure anymore what is right, what is wrong, masculine, feminine energy. There's going to be a dissolving of it, particularly with masculine energy, because Aries is the epitome of masculine energy. With Neptune in Pisces, we went through like a dissolving of feminine energy, but then also a re-emerging of the divine feminine energy. I don't know if you've noticed that. The beginning of Neptune in Pisces was the height of boss babe central. Right? Boss babe, I can do everything myself. I do things on my own. I do this, I do that. The end of Neptune in Pisces, the rise of like feminine energy, black cat energy. You could see the whole range of like, we went through this re-emergence, a new understanding of what does it mean to be in my feminine as a woman? And also how do I balance it with my masculine energy? Hello my lovelies, welcome back. Now in today's video, I am going to talk about Neptune in Aries, and I'm going to talk about Neptune in Aries from a general perspective. What can we expect from 2025 to 2039 with Neptune in Aries? We're not going to go into everything because that would just make this video too extensive. I will have more videos as we go along. You know, we're going to talk about, of course, about the first big happening with Neptune in Aries, which is the conjunction with Saturn. And they're going to come very, very close already this year. Almost conjunct, but they will conjunct exactly in 2026. And we will talk about what this means, generally speaking, for the collective, but also for the individual, for each rising sign. In this video, we're talking about the general overview. Then I will talk about the last 6 rising signs, so from Libra to Pisces. So I want to really urge you not to skip this general forecast, because it is really important to understand the general forecast to then understand the implications for your area of life where it falls in. Before I get into the 5 points I have, I want to say we need to acknowledge how big this shift is. This is not just any old like change. This is a completion process. Neptune completed a cycle. Neptune completed a cycle. It completed something. Something in your life is done. Cycle completed. And now you got to get going again. A new cycle will begin. And from a collective point of view, it's going to be tremendous, but also from a personal point of view, it is quite tremendous. And on top of it, this all happens while we have Mercury and Venus retrograding over Neptune. So Neptune is shifting right after Venus and Mercury went retrograde over Neptune in Pisces. That's when the shift is occurring. So again, I mean, the magnitude of this, it's incredible. And then as if this wasn't enough already, we have a solar eclipse. We have the last solar eclipse in Aries with the North Node in Pisces. I mean, in the next 3-4 months, we might feel a little dissociated. We've probably already been feeling that all year, right? With that Neptune being in 29 degrees of Pisces, there is this completion, but also not feeling ready to fully complete on one end of the spectrum. It's like yes, but no, but yes, but no. And that feeling will continue and possibly intensify, because now we are like, we don't really know. It's like, okay, this is new, so it's exciting. So we have this feeling of, oh my God, possibilities, excitement, but at the same time also, oh my God, what's going on? Like literally, what's going on? And this will be reflected in the media to an extreme. Then also, I think the arts are going to blossom and bloom. I think art is going to be our saving grace in certain ways, right? It can, of course, also be used in a deceptive way, but I think you finding your creative outlet, whatever that may be, can help you utilize and also digest and integrate this new time, this initiation. I believe the most beautiful way to utilize Neptunian energy is, yes, of course, your spirituality, you being really connected to your innate spiritual core, but also in a more practical sense, utilizing it through art is going to be, like I already said, your saving grace and really, really, really helpful. And this can be the classic art, like painting, music, writing a book, writing anything, writing it out. But this can also be your own redefined understanding of what art is for you, what it means to you to be a creative human being. Because our creativity is fueled through our spiritual understanding, our spiritual connection. So when you bring your spiritual essence together with your creative power, your creation power, that's when true art is created. And I think it's a beautiful time now to really utilize this. Also, it will help you stay grounded. Make things more tangible. If you find a creative outlet to utilize this, like, I don't want to call it weird energy, but it can feel really weird and really blurry and unclear. You know, one moment you think, oh, I understand, it's all clear, I know exactly what I want, where I want to go. And the next moment is like, wait a minute, what's going on? Where am I? So just, again, in order to get through that time, the connection to your creation power, to being creative, using your intuition, right? Neptune is also intuition. Using that and bringing it forth, making something tangible, will tremendously help you. Now let's get going. I termed the first point here that I wanted to make the spiritual warrior. For me, this sums up Neptune in Aries, right? Aries is the warrior, the strong leader that doesn't overthink it. It just go. We gotta do what we've got to do. You've got to do what you've got to do, and we go. And when it comes together with the Neptunian energy, it gives it like a spiritual component. And I say spiritual, I'm not saying religious. Even though I can see this being used in that way. Religious wars, I mean, we've seen religious wars ongoing in history, right? That is not something that just happens when Neptune moves into Aries. It's going on in the Middle East, and not just in the Middle East, of course, but there is a focus point there right now. And I think this is going to be intensified, particularly this year, I believe. That ingress, also once Saturn moves in there, that's just going to be, I don't want to say explosive, but it can be explosive. Again, we're talking about Aries, the most intense fire energy there is, right? It's just, it doesn't take much with Aries to blow up. And this is not about fear-mongering. This is just about purely understanding the energies. Neptune in itself dissolves, right? It dissolves everything it touches, and it dissolves it in a way where now we can't see the line, the clear line between this and that. Also, the line between quote-unquote good and evil, right, are going to be blurred much more. You know, understanding who has good intentions and who doesn't is going to be much more difficult. But then on the other end of the spectrum, because remember there's always a spectrum on the other end of the spectrum, some people will wake up to their intuition, seeing things that they haven't seen before and gain a new understanding. Discernment is even more important now for all of you, for all of us, and not just on a global collective level, but really also in your life. That you have that discernment in everything you do. Doesn't mean that you can't act quickly, but you got to bring discernment into it. The other thing is expect activism to take on another level. There is going to be a rise in activism, but also a rise in, I think, healers, possibly also charlatans, right? Like that comes with it. Like people that pose as healers. Again, use discernment. I think this is going to be the word that I will use with this ingress of Neptune into Aries the most. You gotta bring your discernment. Then point number 2 I want to make is the melting of identities, and then also like some sort of rebirth, right? This is Aries. This is the first sign of the zodiac. There's a new beginning. Aries rules selfhood, independence, but also the ego. Neptune dissolves the boundaries of that. Like, where do I end? Where does the other begin? That may not be as clear anymore. The question, what does it mean to be an individual? Might be a question that is going to be asked in the collective. Where do personal desires end and collective needs begin? Or vice versa. I can also see a identity crisis here that runs deep in the collective, and it comes from the individual identity crisis, where we are not sure anymore what is right, what is wrong. Am I, masculine, feminine energies? There's going to be a dissolving of it, particularly with masculine energy, because Aries is the epitome of masculine energy. With Neptune in Pisces, we went through like a dissolving of feminine energy, but then also a re-emerging of the divine feminine energy. I don't know if you've noticed that. The beginning of Neptune in Pisces was the height of boss babe central, right? Boss babe, I can do everything myself. I do things on my own. I do this, I do that. The end of Neptune in Pisces, the rise of like feminine energy, black cat energy. You could see the whole range of like, we went through this re-emergence, a new understanding of what does it mean to be in my feminine as a woman? And also, how do I balance it with my masculine energy? There's going to be a redefining of selfhood. What does it mean, selfhood? What does independence mean for me? And I think this time we're gonna look at it more from the masculine perspective. Now, third point is all about initiating dreams and chasing illusions. Neptune inspires our visions, our dreams, but Aries wants immediate action and the tendency without checking if those dreams are grounded in something. So the things to look out for here are the burnout from chasing dreams that have no foundation. I don't want to call them unrealistic because I don't really like that word. It is more like, is your dream founded in something? Can it hold? Have you locked it in? And by locked in, I mean, is it locked in you, in your grounded energy, in your self-love, in your belief in yourself? Is it rooted in a trust? Is it grounded in your masculine and feminine energy? Or is it flip-floppy? To live a full life and a fulfilled life, we need both. We need to be grounded here on planet Earth, in this world, in this what we call the reality, but we also need to allow ourselves to pull from the other side, because we become too harsh and rigid if we are just on this side, and we become ungrounded if we're just on this side. Aries is very instinctual, right? But if that instinct is not fully rooted, it's like a wildfire. We might, or Neptune, that Neptune energy might want to dissolve the outdated structures, but we got to make sure that what comes in isn't worse or isn't a deception. It's a time of impulsive action, where we just take action without seeing clearly, because we take action because we have idealistic dreams and ideas of how things should look like, and those could come from, I'm not saying they necessarily come from a bad place. They can come from this place of deep compassion and empathy, but they can also come from a deceptive place, and we have to discern. So now let's get into the rising signs. Let's start with Libra rising. For you, Neptune is moving into the 7th house, the house of one-on-one relationships, one-on-one business partnerships. And with Neptune here, I believe you will start craving soulmate unions. Also, your partnership ideals will elevate. So this could mean if you're already in a relationship, this relationship will elevate. This may come through a little bit of friction, not gonna lie, because remember, Saturn will come and meet you in the 7th house for the next 3 years as well. So there will be a lot of restructuring in this area for you. But we're not here to talk about Saturn, we're here to talk about Neptune. So idealization of partnerships. You got to be careful here as well that you do not idolize the partnership that isn't serving you, because that is also an option here. When we look at it from the business partnership perspective, I think what I could see here is you connecting with like-minded people, possibly on a one-on-one partnership. Maybe there are artistic pursuits here as well, or spiritual pursuits. Maybe there's a spiritual business on the horizon. Maybe you're going to have a business partner that you will lead this business with. But again, I think when we look at romantic partnerships, remember not to idealize a partnership that isn't serving you fully, because you might be able to live in this dream idealized world for a little while, but eventually the cracks will show. I'm saying this particularly because Saturn is coming in here. So Saturn will be a wake-up call if there is an idealization. We want to evolve as a partnership, in a partnership, but also as an individual, because the partner is always the mirror. And with Neptune in the 7th house, take it for someone that just had Neptune in the 7th house, we look in the mirror and we see what we want to see. And we tell ourselves, we're fine, it's okay, it's great. Never had that before. And that's probably true, that you will get into partnerships that you never had before, and you will feel a sensation that you never felt before, because Neptune is like nothing else on that level of love, because it is higher love. It is the love that, it's not Venusian love, right? Venusian love is like really deeply tied to the physical, but Neptunian love is so detached, but at the same time also idealizing. And again, it can trap you. I just want you to be honest with yourself, because deception, self-deception in relationship is a big topic. But then again, on the other side, you can create the most beautiful love story that you've ever experienced through this time. Again, if you're grounded, because also boundaries will be tested during this time. Your boundaries will be tested. Oof. And your boundaries might stretch, and you might stretch them until you can't stretch them anymore. Scorpio rising. For you, this is a transit through the 6th house. So what are you going to experience throughout the next 15 years? What are the themes? There is a certain idealism in the day-to-day tasks, the day-to-day life, your lifestyle is infused with idealism, spirituality, but also a lot of creativity. I think you might find a new creative outlet, but this can also come with a lot of blurred lines that may keep you from taking action. I think with Saturn coming in here for the next 3 years, there will be action. You will be required to take action that you might not want to take, but because of that haziness that you feel, that on one hand of the spectrum feels really spiritual, light and creative. On the other hand, it feels like you just want to sit on the couch all day. Maybe not that extreme, but there is this tendency of like, it's almost like you live in a dream and you're not really going anywhere. But at the same time, it feels divine. The challenge, a big challenge here is also the lack of boundaries, right? But with Neptune dissolves the boundaries in the day-to-day, so you have to make sure that particularly in your work, you keep some boundaries, right? You have a schedule, you say, okay, I'm going to go do this, this, and that, and then you go do this, this, and that. And then also on one end of the spectrum, there might be this, oh, I give up, I don't want to do anything. And then on the other side, this overworking, like this martyrdom. Like there is this idea of, if I just do more here, I will feel better about myself because I've done something being of service to others. But you have to really make sure there is no burnout, right? That you don't burn out. There might also be unclear health symptoms. When Neptune entered my 6th house, I remember that time vividly, and it was almost like walking on a dream. That time of Neptune in my 6th house was almost surreal, but also, let me tell you, it was a time where I felt everything was possible, and it literally was. I went from living one life to living a completely different life, like at the other end of the spectrum. Like a life that you wouldn't believe anyone that comes from where I come from could possibly live. And it happened like this in an instant. It wasn't like a long evolution. It was just like one moment I was here, next moment I was there. Everything was possible. And I just went with it. And I think it was also that because I wasn't really super conscious of it, I was just going with it. I was just going with it. I was just going with it. And one thing hit another and another and another. When I look back now, I think like, how did I do all this? How did this come about? How did that come about? How did I do this? And I have Aquarius in my 6th house. So it was an Aquarian kind of, an Aquarius is kind of all out there, and there are a lot of possibilities, and doing things in a very unconventional way, and it was certainly very unconventional, so that might not be fully the same for you because you have Aries here. For you, I think it's not going to be unconventional as much. It's going to be ad hoc. Like it's going to be like it's going to happen really fast though. I think when things change, they will change really fast, and in all areas of the 6th house, right? When it comes to the work you do, when it comes to your health. And this is a beautiful time of healing too. I think you will understand your body on a very different level. You will get in touch with your body on a very different level. I think when it comes to health stuff, it's going to be very, like there's a mental component that you will understand better now. You will understand, you will get an insight into your subconscious and possibly be able to also work through things in a way that you didn't even think was possible before. You will understand your life from a completely different perspective. I think Neptune in the 6th house it's beautiful. Like it was certainly beautiful for me. And I think Neptune in the 6th, I felt was more flowy than Neptune in the 7th. Neptune in the 7th was all about relationships, almost from beginning to end. Working through disillusionment, illusions, ideals, idealization, but also divine union was certainly a part of it. But in the 6th house, it was more like my day-to-day life. It was just a dream. Like one day I was here, and then I was there, and then all of a sudden, and always the most beautiful places on this planet. And so I'm not saying this is going to be like this for you, but there can also be this beautification of your day-to-day life in a way. But again, you got to come in with discernment. What I said earlier in my general forecast, discernment is key here. Sagittarius rising for you. This is a 5th house transit. And so we are talking children, romance, creativity, a creative self-expression, creation, creating something new from scratch, but coming from you. So I think this is a time where romance is going to feel magical, intoxicating. Also idealizing a partner, we got to be aware, right, that we do that. And on one end of the spectrum, this can be the most beautiful thing ever. On the other end of the spectrum, this can be deception, right? And you got to find the fine line here. There is going to be a huge surge of creative energy, creative inspiration, particularly related to the arts, but also to the spiritual world, to your spiritual self. Also, inner child healing is a big one in this area, where we connect with that part of us that might still need to be heard, hasn't been heard enough. We might have to listen in a different way, and you now have this capability to do that with Neptune here in a way that you didn't before, right? And it's not something that you will understand fully consciously. It is, again, an intuitive know, an intuitive understanding. You know now what you need to give yourself. The biggest challenge here is, like I already said, the over-idealization, particularly of your lovers. Also, escapist tendencies, particularly related to pleasure seeking. Escaping, you got to be careful here with not giving into this pleasure seeking too much. Neptune is also drugs. Neptune is alcohol. That's everything that takes us away from that harsh reality. So you got to be aware that you're not ending on that end of the spectrum during this time, because this kind of life and lifestyle will feel even more magnetizing. You will be drawn to that much more. And the last one, I would say, when it comes to the challenges, which kind of relates to the first thing I said, is not losing yourself in romantic fantasies. Capricorn rising. For you, this is a 4th house transit, so we are talking family, home, personal life, emotional foundations, and there will be probably more than ever a longing for an idyllic and spiritual home environment. What you will notice more here is that family relationships will feel a little more blurry. The lines are blurred, things are unclear. You're not sure what you're really doing here. It's going to be confusing. That there might also be a dissolving of certain family relationships, letting go of certain ways of living in a family union. You might want to detach from certain family members or the family you're in. Again, here you have to be careful that you're not idealizing either way, either side of doing and living. The challenge here is that emotional boundaries with family members may erode and dissolve. Like this where do I end? Where does the other begin? What's the distance? Is there a distance? Do I need to keep more distance? I'm not sure, I'm confused. Also, a big tendency to idealize the past. Also avoid emotional vulnerability, where you believe you're above that, right? You're above the vulnerability. You're just looking at it from the idealized place. You're not really opening yourself to feel fully all the feelings. And that always eventually will lead to a crash, right? If you're ignoring, like as a Capricorn, you're very good, as a Capricorn rising, you're very good at keeping a cover on things. And it is more important than ever to allow yourself to feel whatever there is. You got to feel it within the boundaries, and you got to set those boundaries. There's going to be a little bit of trial and error here, but again, allow yourself the vulnerability, and also make sure within that you have boundaries and you learn to set boundaries. I think that's a big time to learn to set boundaries when it comes to the family, when it comes to the past, not idealizing that past. There's also going to be a strong pull to create a sanctuary at home, your own little piece of heaven. I think the best use of your time during this time with Neptune here is healing family patterns that are not serving you, engaging in an ancestral work, right? That idealization of the family line. What is true, what is not true, what is serving me, what is not serving me, what is real, what is not real, right? Real, again, you have to find that you have to find your real. And again, without fooling yourself, without deceiving yourself. That's also it's a Neptunian energy on the lower end of the spectrum. But all in all, infuse your home life with compassion, with empathy, with creativity, but also spiritual practices that help you elevate while still staying grounded. In Aquarius rising. So for you, Neptune is transiting the 3rd house. So we're talking mindset, communication, siblings, your environment, learning, basic education, meaning foundational education. With Neptune here, I think your thought patterns may become more imaginative, more dreamy, more intuitive, more poetic, but also more idealistic. And so communication might feel very inspiring and might also be very inspired, but at the same time also a little confusing. There is a strong potential for artistic writing, for maybe it's time to write a book. Maybe it's time to, I don't know, write poetry. This is a beautiful time for poetry, if this is something you're inclined to do. But also speaking and teaching, right? Potentially teaching something of a basic nature, meaning something foundational that helps people. This could relate to spiritual work as well, helping people understand and reconnect them with their spiritual essence. This could be something that might come up for you during this time as well. Big challenge here is miscommunication because of the dreamy nature of Neptune and the confusing nature of Neptune. There is a tendency to miscommunicate also in relationships, so you got to be careful here. Also with siblings, miscommunication with siblings and your immediate family members, because there might also be a lack of complete clarity, because we are more connected to the spiritual world, to the where everything is possible. So there is this vast container, and within that vast container, it might be much more difficult for you to find the structures. With Neptune with Saturn coming through here in the next 3 years, I think Saturn will help you find the structures, probably not in the most gentle way, but there will be much more structure here with Saturn in this area. But then when Saturn leaves, you gotta make sure that you've you set some boundaries and you set some structures where you can channel that creative juice through. You can utilize that creative potential of yours and you channel it through certain structures so it doesn't get lost. Also make sure you don't fall prey to misinformation. Listen to everything with discernment. Also, this is also the house of neighbors, neighborhood, neighbors, basically. And be aware that there might be a beautiful new relationship developing here with your neighbors, but there can also be, or there is also the chance of a lack of boundaries or challenge. The boundaries are challenged. Also with your siblings, I mentioned that earlier. And then the communication, there might be this confused communication here in this area. Last one, Pisces rising. For you, this is a 2nd house transit. We are talking self-worth, money, values, core values. I think there might be a huge value shift towards a more spiritually aligned life, also towards compassion and creativity. You might even be able to utilize your spirituality or your creativity to make money. So your income or a new income may come through mystical work or artistic work, artistic pursuits. Though also what can be a theme here is that your financial situation might be a bit elusive. So you got to find a way to bring stability in here, grounding, structure, boundaries, right? You got to have some boundaries in place here that you are conscious of when it comes to your financial situation. Though on the other end of the spectrum, right, there is this big potential of money flowing to you because there's this big pool, right? Neptune is the ocean. The money might come in, but it might come in far away from you. You're here in the ocean and it's coming in over there, and you don't really have the connection to it, so it dissolves, it gets lost in the vast ocean. So you have to build structures consciously. Utilize this time with Saturn here in the next 3 years. It might not be easy. I'm not going to lie. Saturn in the second house, particularly when it comes to finances, is not necessarily an easy time, but it is the most rewarding time because you build your future. You build your future stability, your future financial stability with Saturn in this area now. So you have structures in place. So you always know when things come in, you have access. You know how to get there. You know how to channel it to you, right? You got to build those channels with Saturn here in the next 3 years. We'll talk about that in a Saturn video. But with Neptune, it's all over the place. So you have to find a way to channel it. Overspending might be a topic here as well. That of course depends on, who you are as a person already, right? If you have the tendency to overspend, if you do, then I think you've got to be extra careful here and have boundaries in place. Also, make sure you're not giving too much without receiving. That's a big one here, where you give. There's no reciprocation. You have to make sure that you've got a reciprocal that you give to. And we're not talking about 50-50 where you give this and they give you back the exact same thing, but a reciprocal. It's a dance. It's I give my best, you give your best. And that's how we dance with each other. Also, I think there's this big potential to realize, and maybe not realize, but to understand that your inner richness builds your outer gain, your outer material gain, right? The inner worth I hold is reflecting on the outside. It's reflecting in my material valuables. And there is also this understanding that, of course, money is not everything. I mean, we know that, but in the world we live in, money is how we stay alive, how we feed ourselves, how we live. And just understanding this from the perspective of, I am worthy of living my best life. That means that when I understand that, when I embody that deeply within me, that will just reflect on the outside, because the outside is just a reflection of what we hold inside anyways. So whatever we believe about ourselves, not just consciously, right? Not just the 5% consciousness we have, but really on a very unconscious, subconscious level, that understanding of our worth will reflect. If you don't like what you see on the outside, you have a lot of inner work to do still. Because to a degree, I think I said this in one of my videos before, like the outside world is dead. I know it looks very alive, but it is just as alive as what has been happening in here, what you've been holding in here. So to change the outer, you got to change the inner. Because is there a possibility to change the outer? Just, working on the outer? Yes, but it will not be lasting, because eventually you will get back to baseline. Baseline as in whatever is inside of you, whatever you're holding there. So my lovies, that's it for this particular transit. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comment section. And I will see you in the next video.